call on Commissioner Beecham to give the invocation.
Pray with me, please. Good, gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you this morning a thankful people, thankful for the blessings to live in the greatest country that ever on the face of the earth, Lord. But we also come as a concerned people, Lord, a concern for this COVID virus that's still continuing around us, Lord. Lord, we pray for wisdom as we deal with it on our individual levels, Lord. Lord, that we would know the right things, Lord. We wouldn't be misled. Lord, I just pray that this would be over soon and we get back to life as we know it all throughout the world, Lord. Lord, we pray for those that are in harm's way, Lord, that you'd protect them and you'd put your watchful and guiding hand upon them. Lord, we pray that you would guide our thoughts and actions as we conduct the business of this county, Lord, that we would do things through you, for you, and of you, and Lord, for the best of our citizens in Wichita County. Lord, just bless our meeting and bless each one here, Lord, as we pray these things all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, sir. Y'all join me in the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Take your seats, please. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Margaret Jones to come up on behalf. She has a presentation to honor someone we all know and love, Judge Arthur B. Williams.
Excuse me. Good morning, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners, for the invitation. I am Margaret Jones, and indeed I'm honored to give you an update on Judge Williams' 88th birthday card drive. And it runs to the end of August. Her birthday was actually August the 2nd. Judge Williams is under hospice care. She and her daughter Andrea are asking for prayers. Please keep them in your prayers. Who is Judge Williams? I'm glad you asked. She is a legend, mother of Andrea. She is our own local hero, a trailblazer. Judge Williams is a longtime city leading resident. She was the first black city councilor, the first black female mayor, the first black judge in Wichita County, the first black justice of the peace. And I'm proud to say that I was one of her clerks. She had 3 clerks in the office, her JP clerk. I worked there for 11 years, and Judge Williams taught me so much. She motivated me, she inspired me, she made me who I am today, and she helped me to see things from a different perspective. Her list could go on and on. Judge Williams was honored by the Museum of North Texas as the 5th legend of North Texas. October 15th was proclaimed as Judge Arthur B. Williams Day. Now that we know who she is, let me give you some update on the 88th birthday drive. On August 2nd, we honored her at Booker T. Washington. We honored Judge Williams and her daughter Andrea with just a little community presentation. This was where the community members could bring cards, give accolades, and sign the guest book. And by the way, thank you for your cards and for signing the guest book. She would love that. On that night, Mayor Stephen Santayana presented a proclamation, and he proclaimed the whole month of August as Judge Arthur B. Williams Month. You know, you've got to be well respected and somebody to get a whole month for your birthday, right? And the next day at the city council meeting, we were all there, my sorority and I, we were there. And again, Mayor Santayana presented the proclamation to Andrea, proclaiming Judge Williams month, the whole month of August as Judge Arthur B. Williams month. And again, Andrea gave a beautiful speech and thanked him. And you know, this activity, I know it was God inspired because everything fell into place. There was so much energy generated from this assignment. So many people like you, organizations, schools, churches, daycare, and of course social media. Everybody just jumped on the bandwagon. I even heard it was on the national CBS, and it reached Sirius Radio. I just heard that. And as of July, we put out a Facebook post, and as of July the 20th, there were 12,278 people that were reached, over 308 shares, and that was as of July 20th. So I'm going to do my research and find out what it is as of today. And on August 6th, we delivered the birthday cards. We delivered 681 birthday cards. As of August the 14th, she had a total of 749 delivered. And cards are still coming in. So as I said, you got to be loved and well respected to get that many birthday cards and to get a month for your birthday. Judge Williams has so much history. We, Wichita County, sure would like to keep her legend alive for generations to come. I am proposing, and this may not be the right way to say it, that perhaps we name something after her. Maybe I can't tell you what to do, but maybe a room in the courthouse, maybe a placard. How about a building? Or how about a street? What do you think about a Judge Arthur B. Williams scholarship that could be turned, run with the Martin Luther King breakfast? Because I know Judge Williams worked with that program. Judge Williams set the examples of intelligence, hard work, determination, and succeeding. She's a good role model for many people and for many African Americans. As a young mother with 2 kids, I was hired to work in her courtroom, and I was so impressed, and my kids were very impressed. We all had good role models. They were impressed that Mom was working for a judge, and so was I. And at this time, I lived on the last son. Okay. And her legends can be steps for us to follow if given a chance to work at the courthouse. I know the Judge Williams was concerned, and we'd like to see more people who can come and follow in her footsteps. More young African Americans, more young people, and let them share the wealth and work with the beautiful people. I learned so much here, and I still have a lot of friends here today. And so we were just asking, perhaps more minorities could be hired to say, and one day they could say, hey, she did this, it's possible, I can do it too. And I am the coordinator of the Judge Arthur B. Williams 88th birthday card drive. I truly thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this information. My sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated, our local chapter, OEO, and Omicron Epsilon Omega, thanks you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's one of the best kind of presentations like that we've ever had, especially the subject is easy to work with. I've known Arthur B. since she and my mother were both legal secretaries together and worked together, not for the same firms, but were colleagues and collaborated together. So I've known her since I was a young boy. Okay. We are down to the part of the meeting that we ask for any public comment. It is 10:10. If anyone in the audience or on the call-in would like to speak, we allow 5 minutes for that. The court cannot engage in that discussion because it's not a posted agenda item. Anyone who would like to speak?
I would like to speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Here.
Thank you.
If we need another one, I have more.
Call, give your name, please.
My name is Carla Schmiel, and I'm a voting citizen here in Wichita County. And I came here today to talk about possible voter fraud in our county. I was deeply concerned after the November 3rd election here in our county. Many items passed that raised concerns for me personally, and an example would be, raising people's pay when our businesses were shut down during a pandemic. Many small businesses failed, and in the midst of the chaos, charters got changed and people's terms got extended or an extra year. After talking with many other citizens and finding out that we all felt the same way, we as a group decided to bring this to the county commissioner's attention. Then the news broke about a week and a half ago. A retired Army intelligence officer named Seth Keschel, who had completed a county-by-county thermal voter fraud map of the United States of America. The reason I say thermal is because the map, and you have it in your packet, shows counties in green that are likely clean, counties in yellow that are suspect with likely fraud, and counties in bright red indicate that they have strong rampant voter fraud, meaning they have a strong, unexplainable divergence from a normal trend. This is just boots on the ground, ballot manipulation type situation. Understand that Captain Keschel's analysis is only accounting for, the not machines flipping votes. Okay, so imagine my shock and horror to see our county in a sea of green counties with our Wichita County bright red. It's embarrassing. The statistical analysis only strengthened our group's lack of confidence in the integrity of the Wichita County election, November 3rd, 2020. And so that's why I'm here today to ask our county commissioners and possibly the county clerk how this could be. We as a group of citizens have deep concerns about the machines we use. The HART machines, we were told by Donna Long, have no paper trail. Is this correct? If so, these machines are unacceptable going forward. In fact, we would like paper only going forward. We're not a very large county, and as far as voting goes, and we can be easily counted by hand. Our mistrust of local, state, and federal government officials is not something new. In fact, it's something that's been growing for quite some time now. Another concern, we don't trust the media either. Another concern is that we have too many new votes, according to Seth Keschel's analysis, when we're actually losing population, and that's in that packet as well. As I understand, it's 2,000 people lost since the last count or census. We want this explained. There's an estimated 3,000 excess Biden votes. That's on the packet as well. When in the primaries, Biden practically had no voter turnout or enthusiasm. I know that 3,000 excess votes doesn't sound like much when you go against a larger county like Tarrant County, which has 75,000 excess votes for Biden, but that's nearly 10% of our total here in Wichita Falls. And statewide, that's in excess of over 600,000 excess votes. Thankfully, this did not change our state, and with the media's well-planned 10-year plus narrative that would happen. We're also concerned about our voter rolls. How are they purged? What is the procedure and how often? An example would be, and this woman is here, and she'll tell you her story. She has college students that have moved off, and they continued to get their voter cards to the house, even years after when they did not vote. We would also like to know about absentee ballots. Was there a secure documented chain of custody of those ballots, and all ballots for that matter? Can one person bring multiple ballots in, especially if they're easily, they could do that if there were just drop-off boxes and they were unsecured. Were they all mailed back in time? I ask this because it took the judge 2 weeks to certify the election because provisional and military ballots, what are the numbers and the breakdown of those, and have they been verified authentic? Just because there's a pandemic doesn't mean you get forever to count ballots. There is a due date. We also have a situation in which 2 councilmen's votes, and this is the city council, and I know it's not you guys, but on election night, and I put that in there, on TV, you can see like their vote count during the evening, and then the end, it's much less, and so it really comes out to 6,289 votes disappeared, so where'd they go? It's just a question. People have reported to me that personally that Kevin Hunter, a mayoral challenger, wasn't put on the ballot in their district during early voting. I apologize, I do not know if these incidences were reported to an election judge. However, Annie Jackson, running for school board, wasn't put on the ballot, but she was handed to vote. Apparently, that incident was reported to the election judge by phone and a new ballot was issued. But my question is, how many people received an incorrect ballot and had already voted? Okay, the only reason she knew that that was incorrect because she was on the ballot. So this is multiple indications of some serious problems with our voting here in Wichita County, and I feel like it needs to be addressed. So the fact that it took 2 weeks to certify this election, how do we investigate the chain of custody of our votes during that time? Forgive me for my mistrust, but I believe a lot of people that came here with me today feel the same way. And we're angry, and we want answers, and we want a forensic audit. Can you assure us that there were no fake ballots or duplicate ballots counted? How many illegal aliens voted, or about dead folks? You know, all those kinds of things that we hear about. The bottom line is we're wanting you to prove to us that there was no voter fraud in Wichita County. Show us where the excess 3,000 votes for Biden came from, and we want experts from outside the county to examine the ballots. Again, I say we want a forensic audit by an outside party from this county. Many of us have written and called everyone from the top of our state, Governor Greg Abbott, down to representatives asking to be included in the forensic audit that will be done in the largest counties in Texas. Representative Steve Toth of the 15th District is putting forth a bill in the Texas House today, and Greg Abbott said that he would sign it. So I implore you to hear us and do not dismiss our concerns, because if you do, it just doesn't look good. Our concerns are valid, and if you truly represent Wichita County, they would be your concerns as well. I thank you for your service and for letting me speak today, and I would, in closing, like to read from the Bible and let you ponder God's word. Luke 8:17. For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you be sure Mrs. Bohannon, who is the election officer, gets a copy of that?
Yes, and I sent her a letter, and I sent her the map and a link to an entire, basically, briefing on the state of Texas where Wichita County was specifically mentioned.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Mine's gonna be brief. Do I need to come up here?
You know, if you can just speak up and state your name.
My name is Celia Chandler, actually go by Dee. I'm the one that she was referencing, and, you know, I'm not saying that it did, but it doesn't look good. You know, when it comes out on national news networks that someone has, that my daughter lives in Taylor County, which is one of the top counties in the state of Texas to vote for Trump the first time, and vote, and they're very conservative. And they're one of the other, you know, it's just like it's stuck out like a sore thumb. And so what I was telling them was when my daughters, my kids are grown now and have kids, when they left Wichita County, I was still getting voter registration cards for them. And I finally thought, well, they're sooner, you know, they had changed addresses, many of them had populated to other areas of the country. And so my concern is, not that it happened, but it doesn't look good, and y'all are gonna be up for election as well. You don't want that to happen to you. And so my question is, can you look at our concerns and take them seriously and see, because there are some questions to this. And I've got, my daughter this morning asked me, Mom, what do you do it? I said, well, they might take away my right to vote, and they might take away my freedoms, but I'm not gonna give it away. And I've got grandkids and kids, I've lived here all my life, and I've served on, I can't tell you how many boards, and I think it's important, I trust all of you, I think y'all are all good men, and I want you to really look and pray and consider this, because, and I was shocked when I heard it, because everything would seem pretty status quo, but you know, there's legitimate concerns, and so anyway, I pray for y'all to consider it, think about it, and I'm just coming to support that I was the person that she was speaking now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, sir. someone had a hand, but I couldn't see who.
I just have a question. You said that you can't, it's not a debate between you and us, but how do we get answers if you can't give us answers today? Where does that come from?
Well, it'll probably come from a separate meeting where we can sit down and kind of go over this, but we can't do it without it being on the agenda.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Then it would come back, if there's some action we had to approve, to be taken to try to rectify this.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
How do you get that meeting?
Can I respond to that?
No.
No. Just
Okay.
giving her information about how the agenda works. If you want something to be on the agenda, you need to approach either the judge or one of the commissioners to have an item put on the agenda so we can speak about it. We're real limited on what we can talk about in a quorum. So it has to be on the agenda to give the public notification to come up here and be a part of that conversation.
How
So
do I do that?
And that's for us,
Contact any one of
72
us.
hours ahead
Okay.
of time.
Gentlemen, please. If you want, I'll visit with you gladly separately, go through that with you. It's a submittal process, you send it, but it has to be sponsored by one of the five of us to be on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Someone else wanted to speak? Yes, sir. Mr. Hunter.
Mine, Woody, you've got my cell phone, but I'll have to give it out. I've got mainly questions, and if y'all can write these down and then address them. I guess, are you still planning on a 2% tax increase rate? You know, with these higher appraisals, that's what I'm not getting. I know I'm getting reactions from y'all, but if you can address it, call me, I'll be happy, or we meet. I've had comments, concerns about the jail. I guess are those valves gonna have to be replaced, and if so, how much is all this gonna cost? How much over budget are we on the 70 million?
There'll be a full report at the end of this Commissioners Court meeting on where we're at on the jail.
Today?
Today.
Okay.
Like
Well,
there is
I wasn't able to
every
get an
week.
agenda, so I didn't know.
It's online.
Well, and that's why I looked online. There's a deadline to file for like Woody's office, and I haven't been able to find it on the website.
There isn't.
There isn't?
There is not yet. No, I'm
No
sorry,
deadline.
Lori.
They have not set when the,
The deadline will be?
right,
Okay.
because of redistricting.
Well, I get that answered. Thank you. And that's really all I have. So if we can address this, and like I said, Woody's got my cell phone. That's why I haven't called you back, because I thought on some of this stuff, we could address some of the stuff on public forum. It would avoid a lot of phone calls, in my opinion. And that's why it's concerning me as a taxpayer, And I'll be honest with you, I was against the jail. I'm still against the jail, but it is what it is. Now I'm concerned, and that's why I ran for the office of mayor. And there's, it's back deal, you quit griping when you get in the middle of it. And I feel like I'm a well-researched person. That's why I've been to these meetings with these people. This stuff's been documented, and it's still a concern to me, and always will be. And I grew up here. I'm educated here, I work here. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is kind of exciting to have this many people come and have something to say. We go through these things, and it's like watching paint dry. So this is great. That's great. Anyone else?
I have something else. Sorry. I want to talk about COVID, AKA SARS-CoV-2. This will be short and sweet. We, the people of Wichita County, are done with this. I do not feel that we actually have a pandemic. I feel like we have an epidemic of cases. Woody, I spoke to you in my business many months ago, and I told you about a Facebook Live meeting with the top health officials, and my daughter, who works for the health department, did confirm that those were the real people. And in July of 2020, they were discussing how odd it was that that had never been done before, that they changed the definition of a case in the middle of a pandemic, okay? And the gentleman that was, the head of the meeting was very angry, he said, well, you do realize how this will be misconstrued by the media. And the girl that was, giving the news or whatever was just like, yeah, And it's just very frustrating. All of us have been doing research for many months, and we know the inventor of the PCR test said that if you cycle the test beyond 14 cycles, you can find a positive test result for anything, because it's looking for fragments of viruses' DNA or RNA that our immune system has come into contact for our entire lives. So you can imagine we have lots of fragments of viruses in our God-given immune system. Notable is during the so-called pandemic, most PCR tests were cycled in the high 30s and some 40 plus. Okay, so also interesting, the inventor of the PCR test, as he was speaking out, he mysteriously died in 2019. Kerry Mullis was his name. Also is kind of interesting that there's no way for you to test for the Delta variant, like these PCR tests and everything. There's also no way for the PCR test to distinguish between influenza A and influenza B. Okay, and so so during the height of the COVID pandemic, okay, there was no flu during the normal flu season. Okay, there was no pneumonia. I have charts of that all over the counter of my business, you know, trying to educate people, because they come in and they are in such fear, you know, and fear lowers your immune system along with that mask. On behalf of the citizens of Wichita Falls, some
I haven't
business
caught it yet, so I'm good.
yeah, and small business owners, we would like to demand that there be no more mask mandates, especially for our children that have a 99.9998 survival rate. Now, if someone wants to wear one, that's fine. If a business wants to require it in their business, that's their right, as it is my right not to do business with them. Okay, no more lockdowns, no more closing of businesses, no closing our schools, and absolutely no door-to-door vaccination people from the Biden administration in our county. Okay, we don't want vaccine passports, no vaccine mandates. If someone wants the jab, they have the right to do so. If you're thinking of making it mandatory for city or county workers or anyone else for that matter, understand if this happens, class action suits will be an effective options for these folks, and I will help them do it. This also can be considered I can't say that word, when you coerce somebody.
Coercive.
Yeah. This vaccine, by definition, is not a vaccine. It's an experimental gene therapy, and without truly informed consent, it is a violation of the Nuremberg Code to coerce or force any human being to participate in this experiment. This experiment doesn't end until 2023. That's when they will supposedly have the safety data. I personally feel they have enough to cancel the jab right now. And so if, you know, you make it mandatory for people like businesses, basically that is coercion. You know, if they're going to lose their job, if they're under the threat of losing their job if they don't take a vaccine, that is a violation of the Nuremberg Code. Another interesting fact is in Hawaii, a lawyer who is suing the city and state government on behalf of a firefighter who doesn't want to take the experimental jab. This lawyer says that he can prove that 45,000 people have died from all 4 COVID jabs within 78 hours of taking it. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty scary to me. So lest you not forget, you guys, elected officials, work for us and not the other way around. So we the people respectfully and peacefully do not consent to any of those items that I mentioned above. As I understand, in a constitutional republic, the government is only, the government can only govern by the consent of the government, or the governed. So let me make myself clear. I do not consent. Our constitutional rights are not suspended for any pandemic, especially one considered by experts to be nothing more than a bad flu. And I didn't have time to make a packet, but this is just a short list of some of the side effects from the FDA. And this is not an updated one, but this is the Europe bears. These are how many people have died.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, it is 10:31, and that will the public comment section. You all are welcome to stay.
Thank you all very much for coming and expressing your thoughts. I personally appreciate that a lot. I think the public needs to come more often, being more involved. Transparency in our court is very important to me, so I appreciate it.
Judge, could,
Well, we have another,
Say one more thing. I'm sorry.
We just closed.
I just wanted to add that there are so many that believe just like we do. But everybody can't take off work to be here to these things. In case you're thinking a bunch of women, our husbands are at work, and Carla is about to lose her job just to take off in order to come and address these things. And I feel like we the people have just sat back and just let things go, and we're realizing what that's done to our country. And we're scared. And we're bravely trying to stand up for what once was the United States of America.
Would you state your name, please?
Rhonda Otto.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Otter. All right.
thank you all.
would you mention the public hearings that are upcoming? Will we have a crowd?
Yeah, we have 2 public tax hearings there. Nancy, I'm sorry, I don't have the dates in my mind.
September 7th, which is a Tuesday because that Monday's a holiday, 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And then the final one is September 13th, the next Monday, at 10 a.m.
At 10 a.m. And we do that, we're only required to have 1. We try to make sure everyone has a chance. We do a 6 o'clock meeting at night to try to take care of people that work normal work day.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I say one more thing in addition? I'm Tanya
Okay.
Lee, and I wanted to say thank you. Like she said, we haven't been active in our local or national because when we vote, and I vote for names, every time I go to vote, I have done enough research to believe that we are on the same belief path. So I want to thank you for standing in the gap and interceding for what we stand for. But like she said, we're scared of losing it, so you are what's keeping us from losing it. Stand up for us.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in here or on the call-in number? Okay, it is 10:34, and we will close this session. Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is the consideration of the consent agenda. I do have a question on consent agenda number 5, the bill for replacing the door. Chief Rutledge, you might, does that have anything to do with the incident where Airmark backed into the door, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It is the same incident, and he keeps coming to us, we keep referring it back to Airmark and the auditor's office, and I'm not sure who.
Well,
This-
okay, we'll pay for it, but we need
Yeah, it's been outstanding since February. We need to get it.
to, we need to
we
pay
need to
it.
pay it.
Yeah,
I
And then-
believe Airmark should have some responsibility.
And from the email train, and I'm sorry, I missed the end of last week on vacation, but the last I saw, he had sent an email that he's trying to get it resolved and get the payment to us for in full. I think he's paid for like 12 or 1,900 of the damages thus far, and I think, so.
Judge, is that the door on the dock?
no, it's
It's
not.
Sallyport? Oh, Sallyport. See, I didn't think it was Sallyport door, but okay.
No, we discussed it, and then it was gonna go back to make a claim,
All right.
and I didn't know if that had happened, and I see us paying the bill, which we need to take care of the vendor.
Yeah.
But we need to follow up on. Commissioner Beach, and I take it you've got that under control.
I'll follow up with them this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Any other items on the consent agenda?
Judge, on item number 4, that is something that you and Tracy have finished off. I didn't know what the amendment pertained to, actually.
It's just it's actually in our favor. It's taking away some of the services that the auditor had requested. She did the bills she needed.
Okay. So
It'll be a
more
little
to
cheaper.
the munis effect.
Yeah, it's on
Okay.
Munis, yeah, it's on Odyssey. Okay. Anything
No.
else? Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve it. Consent.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Finnegan, second by Commissioner Muller to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, item number 1 on general business is to review and approve the regular bills for payment and order the county treasurer to disperse payments.
Judge, bills were reviewed last week as they have been. I'd make a motion, we pay the bills.
Thank you.
Second.
Anyone have any questions or comments on the bills? Okay. All in favor of the motion by Commissioner Muller, seconded by Commissioner Finnegan to approve and order the payment of the bills, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 2 is discuss, consider, take action to allow temporary worker in precinct 1 to be paid at an hourly rate of $14.50 per hour to be paid from Fund 221 temporary line. Commissioner Beecham?
Yeah, Judge, this is a temp to hire position for a vacancy that I have. The vacancy has a maximum pay of higher than the $14.50 an hour, but we do not have a standing court order to allow me to pay $14.50 an hour for temporary.
So you're paying a lower rate?
Right now, I think our rate's $12.50.
$12.50.
So the intent is to hire this individual permanent into a vacant position.
So the salary you're going to give you is $14.50 plus cost?
$14.50 plus cost
Okay.
as, for their term of being a temporary.
Okay.
Was, and I believe, Mark, don't we have in place, whether they bring or we bring that person, Tanya's got a,
Yeah, if we bring them, if we send them to them, then we can bring them on at any time. We don't have to wait for
Wait
90
out for
days. Is it 90 days?
Right.
Yeah, so that, which is the case in this case, so
Commissioner, does he hold CDL?
I believe he does.
I thought he did. That does make a difference. I think that's correct. I think that's, Jerry told me that.
So it'd be my motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
second.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Any comments or questions in the audience on this? Anyone on the phone? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Beecham, second by Commissioner Watts to approve the item as stated. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 3 is receive an update on the law enforcement center and elevator projects. Commissioner Beecham.
I'll start with the elevator project. Got an email, I think it was Friday afternoon, that the elevator's set for delivery for the annex, so we should see it arrive sometime this week. I don't know any more details other than that, since I didn't have a chance to follow up on anything coming in this morning. So hopefully we can get that thing installed and get that project out from under us. Law Enforcement Center, before I left, I went in on Tuesday morning and spent a considerable amount of time with Willoughby and with Cornerstone. There were...
Explain who they
Oh,
are.
okay,
Please.
yeah. Willoughby is the manufacturer of the plumbing fixtures within the detention area. They are, they're not standard fixtures like you would go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy. These are correctional facility, or correctional fixtures. Willoughby manufactured all of those. Cornerstone is our detention equipment subcontractor. After we walked through with our independent plumber, we felt like we had more issues than what was being reported as debris in the water clogging the valves. And I want to kind of correct what debris in the valves was after seeing it firsthand, after tearing the valves down myself. The debris was what I call sludge. It was a very fine powder-ish substance. It could have been dirt, it could have been metal particulates, it could have been anything, but it was consistent with according to the plumber that I was working with, it was consistent with what you would find build up from plumbing fixtures on a large scale being all brand new and setting not being used for long periods of time. It would go to the lowest point and settle, which would have been the valves in this case. So a lot of the valves had this fine powder sludge built up within them. That was a problem on some of the valves, was causing them to not open and close correctly. They needed to be cleaned. However, that was not the overlying problem that was creating the majority of our issues at the facility. After seeing that, we asked that additional tests be run to understand what was going on. I felt like it was an electrical issue based upon what I was seeing. It ended up being somewhat of an electrical issue. The vast majority of the problem was in programming of the Willoughby water management system. Understand that this, again, this is not standard commode fixtures like you would have in your house. Everything is on a water management system, so everything is monitored. So an inmate can't flush their sheets and flood the pod. They can't, if we suspect that they have contraband, we can shut their toilets off or their sinks off so they can't flush that material down. So there's a lot of controls, a lot of electrical controls within that. So the building's on this water management system that is programmable. We can see each time a toilet's flushed. We can limit the number of times it's able to be flushed. We can limit the number of times toilets throughout the facility can be flushed. What had happened is the system had a misprogramming in it, which was saying you could only flush the toilets a certain number of times throughout the building. So when we were going in, if a single person was going in and testing toilets, they were working. If we had a group of people going in and checking toilets throughout the building, they were hit and miss because we were hitting toilets within the timeout period. And it was because of the way it was programmed. If we had 4 or 5 people in there, some of the toilets were not working because they were within a timeout period. It was not allowing us to flush them. That was discovered by Willoughby when they went back through the programming of the system. That has been cleared. There were 10, they're not valves, that valves is the wrong thing. It's 10 control boards that were found to be defective within 1,000 or so plumbing fixtures within the building. Each of the plumbing fixtures has an overflow system built into it. So if they do flush their sheets, it will send us a signal to say that the toilet, the sink, et cetera, is in overflow mode. It has too much water in it, and it will shut that water off automatically and send a signal back to central control and also the control there at the pod. How these overflows work is pneumatic. It has essentially a rubber tube that goes from the toilet to a sensor on the control board and back to the toilet. They come with a length of hose, this pneumatic hose that goes and plugs in, just simply snaps into a control valve on the control board. Instead of cutting the length of hose to the correct length, whoever installed the toilets, which would have been under the guidance of Cornerstone Manufacturing, again, our detention equipment folks, they left the length of hose too long, which caused it to droop. And Physics 101 says if you have a drip in a line that has water in it, it creates a siphon. And once it created a siphon, once it had water in that hose, it was continually showing some of the toilets within the facility to be in an overflow mode. That was a simple correction. They went through with a pocket knife, shortened those hoses, plugged them back in, and all that was cleared out relatively easily. Took them a day to go through and check every fixture, make sure all that was corrected. Again, I said we had 10 of the control boards that were bad. They were supposed to have been delivered last week. I did read my emails this morning and saw that they were received on site this morning. So I assume that they have folks installing those 10 valves as we speak. Once they're installed, both Yates, our contractor, and county staff will again go through each and every plumbing fixture within the building and check them and make sure we're 100% compliant or able to clear any faults immediately before we call the state and have that final inspection. I did ask last week to rerun smoke test. For those that don't know, we have to test every pod, every place that houses inmates has to be tested for smoke evacuation. So, or smoke detection and evacuation. Because we have essentially a captive population, we can't necessarily move them out in case they can set their mattress on fire. We have to detect that, and we have to evacuate the smoke from the area. So it has to be detected within 1 minute, and then all the smoke has to be evacuated within 15 minutes to fresh air, and it can't re-alarm after 15 minutes. On our initial test that we ran with jail commission, we had several areas that did not perform to that standard. One particular problem was we had a breaker that was blown that we did not know about that was causing an imbalance because some of the evacuation fans were not functioning because the breaker was blown. That was a very simple fix, flipped the breaker, everything was back. There were some building balance problems with dampers within the building that were corrected. They've all been tested. Everything was tested. Everything is within compliance levels now. I asked for that to be retested last week. They ran a sample of tests, and it was reported back to me that every test passed that they did last week. Also, I believe I reported last week that we did go to jail commission, and we received the waivers on the tables that were, the stool heights were improper height by 0.8 of an inch. That was a specified item from our architect, HOK, who's our lead architect, who specializes in building jails. They've specified these same tables in jail facilities throughout the country, and also in a recent jail that they completed in Hays County, Texas, which also had to have a waiver. Unfortunately, they did not tell Wichita County that they had gone to Austin to receive that waiver for Hays County. We could have done them both at the same time and saved us a lot of heartache. That's very unfortunate that they didn't disclose that to us. But that's been resolved. In fact, when we were at jail commission, it was stated that they're looking at changing that standard to allow that height of stools, because it's really, our thoughts were, first of all, when we didn't pass it, it was probably an ADA problem. We went back to TDLR and asked specifically, is this a problem with ADA specifications? Do we make a mistake with these that they're not compliant with ADA? They said, in no way, we're not concerned with ADA compliance with that stool height, that's fine. So that was part of our presentation to jail commission, that we did go to TDLR to make sure that there was no ADA concerns with the facility. All of that, I'll say all of that, because we're at a CMAR, construction manager at risk, We have not incurred any additional expenses other than bringing in the independent plumber for 4 hours one day to give me a second opinion. We haven't incurred any additional expenses getting to this point as a result of failing that inspection. You had asked if, are we in budget? We're above the 70 million, but we are within budget. And let me explain how I can say that. We took a bond out for $70 million. As the project progressed, we had $70 million in the bank. That 70 million grew interest, it grew quite a bit of interest. That interest can only be spent back in the project. We had taken several items out of the project early on in order to ensure that we would meet that $70 million budget. One such item was what we call the G2 pod. The G2 pod was originally scheduled to be shelled out. So in other words, the framework would be built, it'd be blocked in, but there'd be no detention equipment, no plumbing, no electrical within that part. It was going to be built out at a later date. When we got around 40%, we saw we were gaining these funds, which we expected. We found out that we were going to have enough to put that G2 pod back in. That G2 pod, we went to the state, got approval for it to be a 60-man bunk type facility. So we built that back in, which increased the budget of about $2 million at that point. We also added some other things into the project, like adding an additional garage bay to our evidence holding and processing area. And, well, let me back up and as G2 pod real quickly. G2 pod will allow us to bring in additional inmates from out of county or from federal detainees and allow us to actually have a revenue source. In long term, looking beyond 1 or 2 years down the line, long term, it's a revenue source for us to build it out at this time. We'd never be able to come back, or it'd be way expensive to come back at some point and finish that out. It was the right thing to do because we had the money in the bank account to do it. Now, as far as the garage bay is concerned, let me tell you what that did for us. A few months ago, our sheriff's department made a stop, and what was the substance we stopped?
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl, thank you. My brain's going blank on that. We made a stop out in the county, the car loaded with fentanyl. The fentanyl that they had is pure form fentanyl that if it were to have busted and got airborne, we would have had a mass casualty. Our garage bays that we built are built to take cars apart, to process that evidence in a relatively safe environment. When they processed that vehicle, they were able to do it with the doors closed, with an ambulance standing by, everybody in hazmat, to minimize the impact that could have been to the community. We've never had a facility like that for Wichita County. It was find any shade tree essentially and tear a car down. We have an inside facility to be able to do that. So again, it's an added expense that was not originally planned for. We cut it back to one bay, but to have that additional bay gives us a lot more flexibility to do things just like that to ensure the safety of the community. So I say all that to say I believe this week, if those valves are indeed in and they get installed today, we're looking at, like we'll be calling the state this week, hopefully, to have that inspection, and we should be moving in shortly. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
One thing you were explaining, but when we went through the original jail and the tariff prices changed, that caused an increase in material costs, which that meant we couldn't build what we planned at that value. And then they went back through a process they called value engineering, which is probably a nice term for how do we make this cost less. And that's what was done. And no one knows the amount of hours that the chief and Commissioner Beecham and Captain Patterson have spent way beyond to try to get this to be the best jail we could build and one of the most inexpensive jails that built in Texas. We were at a meeting and visiting with Tom Green, County Commissioner, who for 74 million,
73 million.
73
Which is
million,
about where we're at.
built a jail only of lesser number of beds and no law enforcement offices. We now have adequate office space for the sheriff's personnel, be able to conduct their business, be able to do interviews and things in a manner that meets today's standards in courts. It's a lot for you all to be proud of. I'm sorry we can't have a great big open house and show everybody. Some people get special invitations to come and stay with us a while though. And,
But I will say this, if any of you want to go and visit the jail and see it firsthand, call me and I can arrange small group tours. We're not allowing massive public to come in, but I'm more than happy to take time out of my day to show you, because it is something that our citizens should be able to see, should know about. There's been a lot of comments that we did it low bid, or we did it cheaply, or ineffectively, or we put junk in there so it's not working. That's simply not the case. We didn't build anything fancy. There are no frills. It's a jail. It's concrete, steel, and glass. But we built something that will last. We made a design that we can expand for years to come if we need to. We took that into account with how we designed the kitchen, how we designed the laundry, how we designed intake, how we designed the pods. Everything's designed that building will be here for 100 years, and if we have additional inmate needs, we can add on to it very effectively and efficiently without having to seek a new place and build on to the support facilities that are necessary. All of that was taken into account. So it's a facility that will last this county for the rest of all of our lifetimes, and hopefully our kids' lifetimes and our grandkids' lifetimes. Up until now, we've been building a facility about every 25, 30 years, it seems, through history. This one will be here for a while.
you know, it's unfortunate, you all mentioned a while ago, I think, the decrease that's being shown by the census. I hope that applies across the board to our jail population too. We may have retained the wrong people for that. Any questions or comments you all have about it? The next item we have on is to take any discussion on the 2022 budget. And Mr. Hunter, you mentioned a while ago that there's a 2% tax increase. It's actually a 2-cent tax increase, which is still below the 3.5% we're limited to by law, and last year we actually didn't do. We took the no new revenue rate last year because we are anticipating that, you know, people's income had been affected, and so we tried to do that. The 2 cents we have proposed in this budget is to give pay raises across the board to our employees for the first time in 3 years of $1,200. Their department heads could raise and lower those by giving a minimum of 1,000. They could take the extra 200 from someone, give it to someone else that they think they want to reward for their performance. We also are using money that in a contract that the Sheriff and Chief Rutledge worked out with the U.S. Marshal Service, and we're keeping their prisoners. That brought in enough revenue we could take and reinvest that in the Sheriff's Office personnel. And those people that are jailers and law enforcement are getting part of that partnership.
A portion of that.
A portion of it, yeah.
Not the full amount.
It was close to $1 million. The new facility will detain more of the U.S. Marshal personnel, so we have plans to do that. Help with that money because right now we're 30 jailers short. Got a few coming on board, but one of the things often mentioned is it just doesn't pay enough for what I have to put up with. And because you think about an 18-year-old coming in jail making $33,000 a year, that doesn't sound bad. It's the conditions they're in making that we need to look at as they stay, having more to retain them after we've invested in training them. So those kind of things will be in. We're going to use some of the American Recovery Plan Act money to subsidize those salaries until we build enough in there from the Marshals program to continue that on without, hopefully without a tax increase. I hope I'm not leaving my successor a problem, but I think the plan at this point looks pretty good to do that. The other penny that we have in there is, Mr. Beecham mentioned the elevator project. We have more than one elevator project. You know, I leave here sometimes well after everything's closed, and I always debate whether to carry my briefcase down the stairs or get on the elevator and hope it makes it to the bottom. So far, I haven't had to spend the night in the elevator, but we're going to replace those, and the new one elevator will now go all the way to the lower level floor. That little suggestion made by Commissioner Mahler, checked out by the architects and Commissioner Beecham, will save us better than $1 million to put an external elevator in. So we're going to keep that within the same framework of the building. Those kind of things. You all mentioned voting equipment. Ms. Bohannon has already been looking into. We will have a public demonstration of both the ES&S and HART paper trail systems. They're both approved by the federal government and by the Secretary of State's office in Texas. They're the only two vendors. But what those now will produce when you go in and vote, you touch it electronically. It will produce you a paper that you then feed into a scanner, and that paper then is deposited and kept so that when we go back and do, within the 2 weeks, 10 days of an election, we have to come back and certify, but there's a prescribed minimum and maximum amount of time that we have to have and go through those ballots. So that is another $1 million and something. We hope to be seeing some relief from the state, since there are 8 counties, is that 9 counties that will have to do this before, not this November, but before the next November election.
No later than November of 2026.
Yeah, which will be the gubernatorial election cycle, and 2 years later the presidential. So while we did well last year and planning and hoping to have money, we did, but the obligations down the road, to me, I make what's called the county judge's proposed budget. I take input from the commissioners, but what will go in today will be mine. They have not voted on it yet. They are aware of it. They can change it. They can add to it. They can decrease it when we vote on it after that last public hearing on a Monday morning. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, back to a month and a half ago in North Carolina, ES&S came out and said that their machines have unhackable modems. So I don't think we want a machine that has a modem in it. And there's no such thing as an unhackable modem.
Also, I did some research on the ES&S machine, and if you follow the money, they're tied to Dominion.
Okay. Anyone else comment?
Is there a reason it can't be just paper?
I have visited with a lady out of Trophy Club that is a proponent of the paper only and paper counting. Okay, we have sometimes in the neighborhood of 50,000 votes cast here. If you didn't like waiting 2 weeks before, think about it when Harris County votes, if it was all paper. The error rate, when it runs, at least the information we've received, and I have to say from my work, doing that kind of, having people grade things by paper, which is what they're doing, they're grading your ballot, that the human error rate is generally greater than the electronic rate.
We're not a big county though, so we can't do something unless everyone does it.
No. How long do you think it takes? We spend days just going through the mail-in ballots. Now, there'd be an extra step in the mail-in, that the signature and the request information have to match. So they do a verification on every ballot that's counted. Lori, help me here if I don't get it right. But in this case, we would have a stack of ballots. Think about how many people, if you count 50,000 ballots, space, place, and time.
And they're all different. All them ballots are different. You have to keep in mind that
There's not just one
everybody
ballot
is,
style.
it's not all the same ballot. Every precinct is
November
different.
election, we had 147 different ballot styles.
That's a problem to me in itself.
Well, but it's because people live in different boundaries.
And then you had Wichita Falls City, you had Wichita Falls ISD, you had Iowa Park, you had Burke. It all had things on the ballot. You wouldn't want someone that lives in Burke able to vote on something for Wichita Falls.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I wanted to ask, I noticed you're trying to avoid spending a lot of time counting. I mean, what is time counting valued against accuracy?
Well, I think, I'm going to tell you right now,
Accuracy is what most of the voters
Yes.
want.
and I think most people that do that kind of statistical work will tell you electronic counting is more accurate than personal counting. People get fatigued and tired. Yes, ma'am.
Question is, this goes back, and I know it's different during COVID, but the absentee ballots, you used to have to come, I used to have to go to the county clerk, because I've done it before, and I had to bring my driver's license, just like I do when I vote, and prove that this is me, this is where I live. And are we gonna go back to that? Are we gonna continue to have it where people just, or do we still do that? I mean, that's
Are
still.
you talking about hand delivering your ballot?
No,
After
I'm
you
talking,
voted?
no, I would go to the county clerk with my driver's license and say, I'm going to be out of town, such and such.
And fill out the application?
Fill out the application, and they would, my driver's license to prove that I was a resident of that address. And then I would receive my mail-in ballot.
Right, you can still do that,
I know,
but you
but-
don't understand the political parties send out these applications for ballots by mail. Individual
Candidates do.
people on the ballot send out these applications by mail. So we have to look at every application. We make sure that you were one registered in Wichita County, that your address is within this county, and then we have to also watch to make sure that you haven't sent in 4 of them, which we get.
And
We
that's
get
what I was
multiple
asking.
applications. We have begged, we have asked to have the parties to stop doing this, to have the people on the ballot to stop doing this. And
So when does it get
So
solved?
how do we?
I don't know,
So
because
how
our
do we help you?
association has pushed for this, and it's our hazard path.
Your representative, your
Yeah.
senator.
Representatives.
So James Franklin, we're going to talk to today?
Yes.
I'll get this information to him as well.
Yes, because the House still hasn't considered the current bill, which has a lot of good things. I still can't find that it's doing things to keep people from voting. I don't see that with that. But we're starting to get a little far afield from the subject. But, you know, there's a lot being done, but to finish that one thing, I was in Lori's office and this gentleman came in, he had 2 envelopes, 2 ballots. It was his and his wife's. And she courteously explained to him, showed him in the law where he could turn in his ballot. Now, had he stopped at the blue ballot drop box called U.S. Mail in front of the courthouse, he could have dropped both of those in there. I can live in a retirement center and gather up everybody's ballots and carry them and drop them in a mailbox. So I don't think we've solved what the concern there.
And that was my question, and you addressed it. What are we doing now that's different than what we did in the past? So that's our concern, is we just want to make sure that the person that's voting is the person who has the ballot. And that's just for y'all too, because
Yeah.
everybody.
Most everybody in here, though, is in agreement with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We all have those concerns.
If you do anything for the public to help you, then we will.
well, we need vote work, we need election
Election
workers.
workers.
Well, that's what I'm planning on doing.
Yeah.
My entire group will be helping.
Well, great, we're one. The other thing I've asked for, and both some of Senator Springer's staff, some of Representative yours, and some of Representative Frank's. It's one thing, you know, poll watchers, right now there is no training requirement for poll watchers. It's kind of like getting on an airplane, and because you've flown in one before, well, if the pilot doesn't show, I'll be glad to take over. I don't want to be in that airplane. And I've jumped out of plenty good, perfectly good airplanes, but it was my choice, not a requirement. And I'm just saying, there needs to be people that know what they're seeing and reporting as an error, or we're gonna go down an awful lot of rabbit trails that we're gonna waste a lot of time on.
Do you have training for those?
For a poll watcher?
Or for people that want to vote?
Yes, we have to, by law, we train before each election. But don't contact me. You need to contact the parties that you want to work for, because they give us the names of the workers, or the judge and the alternate judge.
Yeah.
And then the judges are responsible for getting their workers. We do try to keep a list of who wants to work just as a worker and not a judge or an alternate judge. So, but go with whatever party you want to be involved with first, please.
Yes,
Before the
Tanya.
money goes toward electronic voting machines again, what can, as voters, how can we be assured that this isn't gonna create the same problem that millions of dollars went to new voting machines and we still have the same?
You need to come to those public
We'll have-
displays.
Yeah.
You would be surprised. If you'll come to them and look at them, you'll be impressed at the quality of the machines and the apparent security of the machines.
Well, I think the main thing is being involved with your state representative and your state senator, because they write the rules. I mean, it comes from the state. We're the application arm of it, but we don't write the rules. And Judge, I'd just like to ask a question, just out of curiosity for anybody in this room. When you hear the term, a voting machine being hacked, what does that mean to you?
It means it has internet access.
What does it change?
What is it? Because, see, our current voting machines are not hooked to the internet, anyway.
They've all claimed, you see, we're having a concern.
Yeah.
They're
They've all
not.
claimed that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's.
Well, I mean, ours aren't even connected.
They're not.
They're not connected to the internet in any way.
Our counting equipment is not
Yeah.
connected to the internet.
And I thought the same thing, and my attorney back there is telling me, but I was just curious, because I had the same concept.
We're really
And,
getting.
yeah, I know we are,
far
and I just a
Yeah.
question.
Okay, but if you all, want to, Lori, any of us will sit down with you to talk. I'd really like to go over the information and where we could flesh it out further and talk about it and do that. But we are facing this, we will have those public meetings. I can reach out, it is a budget item, Counselor, but.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Mr. Hunter, did you have any more questions about the 2 cents? Did that at least tell you why we're looking at that?
Well, I mean, just sitting here, I'm gonna do research on these property value, the taxes, because these appraisals are out
But your rates went down.
of last year.
No,
But
sir.
now you're gonna increase it 2 cents.
Okay, your property value went up. By law, your tax rate has to go down to offset so to the same amount of income. Now, it'll vary slightly because of how many digits it runs out of, that kind of thing. But it brings it back to neutral. We're adding 2 cents back to that. You're still gonna be lower than the rate per hundred you paid this year, but it is an increase.
But on the individual, it's only, that 3.5% is only gonna affect the whole county budget. Individually, Kevin Hunter, who I'm concerned with, can be jumped up to a higher appraisals or the higher tax rate. Is that not correct?
You can be.
You can be, but you're not gonna be. You haven't been by this court. In my 30 years on here, we've gone to the maximum rate, I'm gonna say less than 5 times.
But what Kevin's talking about, Judge, is that his appraisal can be unique to the situation. and just because we lower the rate, he could
He
pay
could have
more
a
than
higher
he did
tax. Yeah, it's a,
before as an
Get
anomaly.
a history on it, it's been done.
the no new tax rate's a misnomer. It,
What,
it can affect different people differently. It's a no new tax rate county-wide.
Right.
It brings in essentially the same
Sure,
revenue as
Some
yours.
people's tax bill's gonna exceed 10% through these higher appraisals.
Well, they can't.
Yes, it will.
Well, they can exceed it, but you can't be taxed higher on your home. Now, the misnomer in that is your business is not protected. That's where the killer
I
is.
can show you, I personally hand delivered one to Greg Abbott when he was at Perry's house, where my tax bill on my ranch house went up 40-some%.
It's not your homestead, right?
Not my homestead,
Okay.
but 40-some%, but that's still my tax bill, is it not?
Well, yes, sir, it is. But that was your appraisal that you,
Yes.
Yeah.
It went up 40-some%.
Well, I don't like it either. I've got a bunch of rental property and the taxes are killing me, but if you look at our housing market, you cannot argue with our housing market.
We're
So
not
them
here to argue
appraisals
about
are not far
People
off.
get mad at Tommy Smythe and Cook will write in a check, to Tommy, but you look at your overall history, and that's what I do.
Right.
It's gone up.
But they don't ever seem to go down.
No.
Judge,
yes, ma'am.
And I will say, from the real estate perspective, my husband's been in the real estate business since 1977. He's a broker, he had Century 21, his dad did, and he's built houses. The real estate market is crazy.
Right.
I mean, you can't even keep, there's 300 and something realtors, there's 100 and something houses listed. And they get 5 bids on a property and it's bidding more. So that, and you can blame the appraisers, not the city's appraisers. You can rate appraisers, you can rate whatever it is, but the interest rates are so low, people are, and it's supply and demand. It is crazy. There's houses that are appraised for unbelievable amounts in areas of town that they should never be appraised at.
And that
The-
bubble will
one-
pop.
And it's
Yeah.
gonna pop.
One of the interesting things that doesn't come out in this, the comptroller's office comes in every other year and reviews your values. They have to be between 95% and 105% of the market value. While the state says, oh, we're trying to keep your property taxes down, they want those rates up so they pay less to the school districts. It's a little misgiving.
You know what, Judge? Having these people here today make me proud to live in this country. This is what we need. This is what we need. I agree. That's
Just to let y'all know, there's meetings happening all over this town 3 times a week. And I've now met a lot more people that are on my side of the table. And that's one of the reasons why I ran for mayor. My concerns, because it doesn't take 5 minutes worth of digging to find the truth. It really does. If you'll approach the people, they'll tell you the truth. And that's where, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not gonna call anybody out here, but I've had it in here, I've had it at the city meetings where I've been fibbed to. And once you tell me a fib one time, and I'll explain it to you one-on-one, who it was, and what they did, but once you do that, I just don't even really care. I can't trust you, and that's what's really disturbed me as a citizen here. It really has.
good discussion.
And Kevin, I just want to be clear about his 2 cents he's talking about. So last year, our rate, and I'm going to round off, 64 cents. And that 64 cents creates about $40 million roughly for us. So then this year comes along and we have new appraisals that come into the marketplace. We have to say what times the new appraisals equals 40 million. That's all we took last year. So that rate becomes 61 cents, okay? So 61 cents times our latest appraisal gives us 40 million, and last year the appraisals times 64 cents gave us $40 million. So that's considered now by the state the no new revenue rate, of 61 cents. And the judge is talking about 2 cents that applies to the no new revenue rate, which would take your rate to 63 cents. It's still a penny under what last year's rate was, but it's 2 cents in additional revenue that we,
But you look at your final tally when you're writing that check to Tommy Smythe, what the county amount was. That's what I'm gonna do.
like, how do you mean? I'm not following you.
I'm gonna look at, when I break down the check, it's gonna have your county tax, and I'm gonna look at it through history, 1980, you almost throw 20 out because of the COVID, I get it. Then I'm gonna look at 20, and I'm gonna look at 21 when I get that tax bill. That's what I do.
And what
I do it every year, and that's the only reason, like, I'm going, this little deal on Facebook now with the city. They're you know, and they may keep a no new tax rate or decrease, but they're still increasing their budget by $11 million. It is what it is. You're increasing it by $11 million. However you're getting there, you're getting there. Now, you know, and I'm all for giving people raises. You know, we're all shorthanded. I see it in the oil field. But it is what it is. You know, your budget's so much over last year, and you could say, this is what I'm spending it, and the city's doing the same thing, but they're raising it $11 million. For whatever they're divvying it up with, are gonna spend it on, they're still raising it $11 million.
So we need to find a way to fund local government outside of property taxes.
Well.
And that's what I wish the legislature was working on.
Those guys
Yeah.
did not have all the answers.
Yeah.
They didn't have all the answers. Now, I'm gonna tell you, when you look at it, I'm concerned, I don't know about our county debt, but I am concerned about our city debt. It is, because when you look at, and they bring it up to Tyler, we had this Don Warren, my daughter-in-law's from Tyler, I know this man, he's their mayor. They run a ship. They have no debt. No debt. But you know what their tax rate is? Less than 26 cents. And here's the comment Don made. If we can't afford it, we don't buy it. They don't have it. They got a 4B. You know how much debt their 4B has? None. You know how much our 4B debt is right now? And this is from Darren Liker. $40 million. Now we're fixing to add to it with this hotel down there. Now don't get me started on that, because Spectrum told me the truth on all that. Now they're being kicked to the side. And we're gonna see how this all pans out. I just believe in less government. That's what built this country. Private enterprise built this country. When I was running for elected official, it's good roads, drinking water, and kind of like the old Eddie Childs, and I knew Eddie Childs personally, Western Company, is defend my shores and leave me the hell alone. As y'all well know, I had a bad experience with the Bureau of Land Management. It was wrong. It's still wrong. And that's what really woke me up to all these issues. It only takes 5 minutes worth of deal. And I wrote numerous letters. I'm the one that put that lawsuit together. I don't want to remind you, because I can still show you the letter I wrote to George P. Bush to have a starch in a collar to address this problem. That's how the Texas Public Policy Foundation showed up in Wichita County. And I'm not going away wherever I'm living. If it's wrong, it's wrong. It is what it is. And I have questions, and some of them are legitimately answered. I get that. You know, but like I said earlier, I've had fibs told to me, I just don't argue with people. And I'll be happy to tell you some of them in this room, and some of them that happen at the city council meeting, one-on-one, but I'm not gonna pay up mudslinger and stuff like this.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Anything else? Gentlemen, anything else on the budget? Well, this is great. All right. Thank you all very much for being here. It is, Willie, did you have anything but? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, just without say thank you for being a backbone for those of us who've been spineless and quiet. We're not gonna be quiet anymore.
All right, very good.
Very good.
We wanna say thank you for being our voice.
Very good.
All right. It's 11:26 and we're adjourned.
No.